Beverly Hills, California, August 20th, 1989. A warm summer night settles over one of America's most exclusive neighborhoods. On Elm Drive, behind perfectly manicured hedges and iron gates, a sprawling 9,000 square foot mansion sits in darkness. Inside, the silence is about to be shattered forever. This is the story of the Menendez mansion, a home where wealth couldn't buy happiness, where success masked suffering, and where the American dream would become an American nightmare. This is the story of blood, lies, and a family torn apart from the inside. Let's go back to understand how we got here. Jose Menendez was a man who embodied the immigrant success story. Born in Cuba in 1944, he fled to the United States as a teenager after the Castro Revolution. With nothing but determination and ruthless ambition, he clawed his way to the top of corporate America. By the 1980s, Jose had become a feared and respected executive in the entertainment industry. He was the kind of man who fired hundreds of employees without blinking, the kind of man who closed billion-dollar deals before breakfast, the kind of man who believed that winning was everything and second place was just the first loser. His wife, Mary Louise, known to everyone as Kitty, came from a different world. She was from a wealthy suburban family, beautiful and cultured, a former beauty queen who once dreamed of being a teacher. But when she married Jose, her dreams became his dreams. Her life became his life, and the woman who once radiated warmth slowly became a shell, drowning her disappointments in prescription pills and wine. Together, they had two sons, Lyle, born in 1968, and Eric, born in 1970. From the moment they drew their first breaths, these boys were not children. They were investments, projects, extensions of Jose's unstoppable ambition. The Menendez family lived the life most people only see in magazines. They moved from New York to New Jersey, and finally, in 1987, they arrived at their crown jewel, the mansion on Elm Drive in Beverly Hills. 7 bedrooms, 9 bathrooms, a pool that could host Olympic trials, tennis courts, a guest house, a staff of 8 people maintaining perfection around the clock. The address alone was worth millions. Elm Drive sat in the heart of Beverly Hills, where every neighbor was either a movie star, a producer, or someone who owned half of something you'd heard of. This wasn't just a house. This was a statement. This was Jose Menendez telling the world he had made it. But inside those walls, something was very wrong. The boys, Lyle and Eric, grew up in a world of contradictions. They had everything money could buy. Private schools, tennis lessons from coaches who trained professionals, shopping sprees on Rodeo Drive, exotic vacations, sports cars. But they didn't have safety. They didn't have peace. They didn't have the one thing money can't buy, a childhood free from fear. Jose ruled the mansion like he ruled his boardrooms, with an iron fist and zero tolerance for weakness. He demanded perfection from his sons, perfect grades, perfect athletic performance, perfect behavior. Anything less was met with rage. The punishments were severe, and the expectations were impossible. And according to what would later emerge, there was something even darker happening behind closed doors. The abuse, both emotional and allegedly physical, created a pressure cooker environment. The boys lived in constant fear of disappointing their father. Eric, the younger and more sensitive brother, struggled with anxiety and depression. Lyle, the older one, became aggressive and controlling, mirroring the only male role model he had ever known. Kitty, meanwhile, was disappearing. The pills, the alcohol, the depression. She knew something was wrong in her home, but she was either unwilling or unable to confront it. Some say she was a victim too. Others say she enabled the abuse through her silence. The truth, like everything in this story, is complicated. By the summer of 1989, Lyle was 21 years old, recently suspended from Princeton University for plagiarism. Eric was 18, a talented tennis player with dreams of going pro, but those dreams were fading under the weight of expectations he could never meet. Both brothers were living at home in the Beverly Hills mansion. Both were suffocating under their father's control. Both were running out of time. Jose was tightening his grip. He was threatening to write the boys out of his will. He was talking about cutting them off financially. He was, in his typical style, delivering ultimatums. Shape up or ship out. The boys felt the walls closing in. They felt trapped. And trapped animals, as we know, are the most dangerous kind. On the evening of August 20th, 1989, Jose and Kitty Menendez settled into their usual Sunday night routine. They rented a movie, got comfortable in the family room just off the main living area. The room had large windows, expensive furniture, and shelves lined with awards and photographs of a family that looked perfect from the outside. Lyle and Eric were somewhere else in the mansion, or so it seemed. What happened next would be debated, analyzed, and argued over for decades. But the basic facts are these. At approximately 10 p.m., someone entered the family room armed with 2 12-gauge shotguns. Jose was sitting on the couch. Kitty was beside him. The first shot hit Jose in the back of the head. He died instantly. Kitty tried to run. She made it a few feet before she was shot, then shot again and again. When it was over, she had been shot 10 times. The room was a massacre. Blood spattered the walls, the furniture, the family photos. Shotgun pellets embedded in the ceiling. The violence was extreme, personal, and devastating. The killers were Lyle and Eric Menendez, their own sons. After the murders, the brothers did something calculated and chilling. They left the house, drove to a movie theater, bought tickets to establish an alibi, then came home and called 911. Eric's voice, captured on the recording, sounds panicked, hysterical. He's sobbing, screaming that someone killed his parents. The performance was convincing. At first, when police arrived at the mansion on Elm Drive, they found a scene of carnage, but they also found no signs of forced entry. Nothing was stolen. This wasn't a burglary gone wrong. This was something else. Still, the initial investigation focused on Jose's business enemies. He was a ruthless executive. He had made enemies. The theory was that a mob hit or a business rival was responsible. For months, Lyle and Eric played the role of grieving sons. They inherited their parents' estate, worth approximately $14 million, and they spent it fast. Eric hired a full-time tennis coach for $60,000. Lyle bought a Porsche, then a Rolex. They took trips, bought expensive clothes, dropped hundreds of thousands on restaurants, clubs, and whatever caught their fancy. The mansion on Elm Drive sat empty, a crime scene slowly being forgotten. But the truth has a way of surfacing. And in this case, it came from an unexpected source. Eric had been seeing a psychologist, Dr. Jerome Oziel. In their sessions, Eric was struggling with guilt, with nightmares, with the weight of what he had done. And eventually, he confessed. He told Dr. Oziel everything, the plan, the execution, the cover-up. Dr. Oziel, bound by doctor-patient confidentiality, kept the secret. But he also recorded the sessions. And he told his girlfriend, Judalon Smith. When that relationship soured, Judalon went to the police. She told them about the tapes, about the confession. And suddenly, the case that had gone cold was white-hot again. In March 1990, 7 months after the murders, Lyle and Eric Menendez were arrested. Lyle in Beverly Hills. Eric, who had fled to Israel, turned himself in days later. They were charged with first-degree murder. The case that would become one of the most famous trials in American history was underway. The trials, yes, trials plural, would stretch over years and captivate the nation. Court TV broadcast every moment. The country became obsessed. The question wasn't whether Lyle and Eric killed their parents. They admitted that from the beginning. The question was why, and whether that why would be enough to save them from life in prison. The defense strategy was shocking and controversial. Lyle and Eric's attorneys argued that the brothers had been sexually, physically, and emotionally abused by their father for years. They painted Jose as a monster who molested his sons, terrorized them, and created an environment where the boys genuinely believed they were in danger. They claimed Kitty knew about the abuse and did nothing. They argued that the brothers killed in self-defense, that they believed their parents were going to kill them to prevent the abuse from being exposed. The prosecution called it nonsense. They argued that this was a case of two spoiled, entitled rich kids who wanted their inheritance and didn't want to wait for it. They pointed to the spending spree after the murders. They pointed to the planning, the lies, the lack of any evidence that the parents were planning to harm the boys. They said this wasn't self-defense, it was execution. The abuse allegations became the centerpiece of the trial. Family members testified. Some supported the brothers' claims, others vehemently denied them. Cousins spoke of being molested by Jose, friends spoke of Eric's emotional distress, teachers spoke of Lyle's aggression, psychologists analyzed, experts debated. The nation watched and took sides. The first trial ended in mistrials for both brothers. The juries were deadlocked. Some believed the abuse claims, others didn't. The case had to be retried. During this time, the mansion on Elm Drive remained frozen in time and infamy. The new owners, whoever bought it after the estate sale, found themselves living in one of the most famous crime scenes in America. The address alone became a tourist attraction. People drove by slowly, taking pictures, imagining the horror that unfolded inside. Real estate agents struggled to market the property. How do you sell a house where a family was slaughtered by their own children? The second trial in 1995 and 1996 had different rules. The judge limited testimony about the abuse. The defense couldn't present their case as fully as before, and this time, the prosecution won. Lyle and Eric Menendez were convicted of first-degree murder. They were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The brothers, who grew up in a 9,000-square-foot mansion, would spend the rest of their lives in cells measuring roughly 100 square feet. But the story didn't end there, because decades later, the case of the Menendez brothers would experience a resurrection in public consciousness. In 2023, new evidence emerged. A letter Eric had written to a cousin months before the murders, describing his father's abuse, was discovered. It corroborated the brothers' claims. A former member of the boy band Menudo came forward, alleging that he too had been molested by Jose Menendez when the band was signed to RCA Records, where Jose was an executive. Suddenly, the abuse allegations that had been dismissed by many were being reevaluated. Documentaries were made. Podcasts dissected every detail. Social media campaigns advocated for the brothers' release. A new generation, one that understood trauma and abuse in ways previous generations hadn't, began to question whether justice had truly been served. The conversation shifted from whether the brothers killed their parents to whether abused children should spend their entire lives in prison for fighting back against their abusers. Legal motions were filed for resentencing. Advocates argued that if the same case were tried today, with our current understanding of trauma, abuse, and its psychological impact, the outcome might be different. The brothers, now in their 50s, having spent more than 3 decades behind bars, became symbols of a larger conversation about abuse, justice, and whether our legal system allows room for nuance. And the mansion? The house on Elm Drive has changed hands multiple times since that terrible night in 1989. Each sale comes with a footnote. Each new owner has to decide whether they can live with the history embedded in those walls. The house has been remodeled, updated, made modern. But you can't remodel away a legacy like this. Today, if you drive down Elm Drive, you'll see a beautiful property. Well-maintained, expensive, exclusive. You might not even know which house it is unless you looked it up beforehand. The current owners value their privacy. They don't give tours. They don't talk to the press. They live their lives trying to ignore the ghosts that came with the deed. But make no mistake, this house is haunted. Not by spirits, but by questions. Questions about wealth and pressure, about abuse and its long-term effects, about family and the breaking point, about 2 sons who felt so trapped, so desperate, so damaged that they saw murder as their only way out. The Menendez mansion represents the dark side of the American dream. Jose Menendez achieved everything he set out to achieve. He came to America with nothing and became a multimillionaire. He lived in one of the most prestigious zip codes in the world. He had a beautiful wife, 2 handsome sons, and more money than most people see in 10 lifetimes. He won, and yet he lost everything in the most violent, final way possible. Kitty Menendez sacrificed her own identity to support her husband's ambitions. She lived in luxury but died in misery. Her role in the family tragedy is complex. Was she a victim of Jose's control, unable to protect her children, or was she complicit in their suffering? The answer is probably both, a painful reminder that people can be victims and enablers simultaneously. Lyle and Eric Menendez took their parents' lives, and in doing so, forfeited their own freedom. Whether you view them as cold-blooded killers or desperate abuse victims defending themselves, the result is the same. They will likely die in prison. The tennis courts, the pool, the mansion, the life of privilege, all of it gone. Replaced by concrete walls and iron bars. The true tragedy of the Menendez mansion isn't just what happened on August 20th, 1989. It's everything that led up to it. The years of alleged abuse, the pressure, the perfectionism, the emotional abandonment, the wealth that bought everything except therapy, honest communication, or the kind of unconditional love that might have prevented this catastrophe. This case forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. How much abuse can a person endure before they break? At what point does a victim become a perpetrator? Can murder ever be justified as self-defense against long-term abuse? And perhaps most importantly, how many families are living behind perfect facades right now, suffering in silence, one bad decision away from becoming the next headline? The mansion on Elm Drive can't answer those questions. It just stands there, a silent witness to one family's implosion. The tennis courts where Eric once practiced his serve are still there. The pool where the boys swam as children is still there. The family room where Jose and Kitty died has been renovated, repainted, reconfigured. But the blood, the screams, the shattered lives, those are permanent residents. Beverly Hills continues to thrive. The neighborhood remains one of the most desirable in the world. Houses on Elm Drive still sell for tens of millions of dollars. The wealthy still flock there, still build their empires, still raise their children in the shadow of palm trees and privilege. And occasionally, when a new owner moves into the Menendez mansion, the story resurfaces. The news runs old footage, the neighbors remember, and for a moment everyone is reminded that money cannot buy peace. The Menendez brothers, now separated and serving their sentences in different California prisons, have become something unexpected in recent years. They've become advocates. They've used their platform, such as it is, to speak out about prison reform, about abuse, about the importance of mental health. Lyle married twice while in prison. Eric married once. They've maintained their innocence regarding premeditation, insisting they acted out of fear. They've expressed remorse for the pain they've caused, while also standing by their claims of abuse. Public opinion remains divided. Some see them as victims who snapped after years of torture. Others see them as spoiled murderers who played the abuse card to avoid full responsibility. The truth, as it often is, probably lies somewhere in the nuanced middle. People are rarely all good or all bad. Situations are rarely black and white. The Menendez case is painted in shades of gray, blood red, and the kind of darkness that no amount of Beverly Hills sunshine can fully illuminate. For those who study true crime, the Menendez case remains endlessly fascinating because it contains every element of human drama: wealth and poverty of spirit, success and failure, love and hatred, family and betrayal. It's Greek tragedy set in modern America. It's Shakespeare with shotguns instead of swords. And at the center of it all is that mansion, that beautiful, terrible mansion on Elm Drive, a symbol of achievement and destruction. A place where the American dream curdled into an American nightmare. A reminder that the most dangerous prisons aren't always the ones with bars and guards. Sometimes they're the ones we build ourselves, from expectations, from abuse, from the desperate need to appear perfect when everything inside is broken. The story of the Menendez mansion is ultimately a story about secrets, the secret abuse Jose allegedly inflicted, the secret pain his sons carried, the secret desperation that led to murder, the secret planning of the crime, the secret spending of the inheritance, and finally, the secret confessions that brought everything crashing down. We like to think we know our neighbors. We see the nice houses, the nice cars, the nice families. We assume that wealth equals happiness, that success equals stability, that expensive addresses mean everything is fine. The Menendez case taught us, or should have taught us, that we never really know what's happening behind closed doors, that the family waving from the mansion might be drowning, that the children playing tennis on the private court might be planning patricide. It's been over 3 decades since that terrible night. Jose and Kitty Menendez are buried side by side. Their sons are imprisoned hundreds of miles apart, aging in cells, their youth gone, their futures predetermined. The mansion has moved on, hosting new families, new dreams, new stories, but the past clings to it like morning fog, never quite burning away. If you ever find yourself in Beverly Hills, driving down Elm Drive, you might pass the Menendez mansion without even knowing it. And maybe that's for the best, because some houses carry too much weight, some stories are too heavy to bear, and some secrets, once revealed, can never be forgotten. The dark secret of the Menendez mansion isn't just that a murder happened there. Murders happen. Terrible things happen in all kinds of places. The dark secret is what the mansion represents. The lie that money solves problems. The lie that success equals happiness. The lie that you can control people into perfection. The lie that abuse stays hidden forever. The lie that families can survive on appearances alone. Jose Menendez built an empire, but he couldn't build a healthy family. Kitty Menendez maintained a beautiful home, but she couldn't maintain peace within it. Lyle and Eric Menendez inherited millions, but they lost everything that truly mattered. And the mansion on Elm Drive stands as a monument to all of it. A beautiful, expensive, blood-stained monument to the price of secrets and the cost of lies. In the end, the story of the Menendez mansion is a warning about what happens when we prioritize image over substance, when we choose silence over honesty, when we let abuse fester in the darkness, when we measure success only in dollars and status, when we forget that homes should be sanctuaries, not prisons, when we lose sight of what family is supposed to mean. The mansion on Elm Drive in Beverly Hills, California is still standing. It's still beautiful. It's still worth millions. But it will forever be the place where the American dream died screaming, where a family imploded in violence, and where 2 sons destroyed their parents and themselves in one terrible, irreversible night. This is the dark secret of the Menendez mansion, a Hollywood home of blood and lies, a reminder that the most expensive addresses can house the cheapest values, and that sometimes the greatest tragedies happen in the places that look the most perfect. The gates still close. The hedges still hide. The mansion still stands. But if you listen carefully on quiet Beverly Hills nights, you can almost hear the echoes. The shotgun blasts that shattered a family, the screams that ended 2 lives and destroyed 2 more, the secrets that finally violently exploded into the light. And somewhere, in a prison cell, 2 brothers live with those echoes every single day.